Formula One cars are the fastest race cars on the planet, apart from when they're not. Because there are some tracks that F1 are yet to conquer. So we're going to go over all the major race circuits that don't have lap records set by F1 cars and figure out if they could beat them or not. Because surprisingly, in a lot of cases, Formula One cars are not the fastest. Right, the rules. Typically, a lap record for a circuit has to be done in a race. If you'll humour me for a second, when I was racing in a series for ex-F1 cars, I nabbed lap records at Brands Hatch Indy, Silverstone National, Donington Park, Zolder and Leipzig, all in a Benetton F1 car that I drove for that season. That was a great humble brag. Those are official lap records. I had to do them in a race. Incidentally, I knew I only had one lap to get those records, as the tyres were only good for one lap. So to get these records, I had to get pole, be super gentle on the tyres for lap 1, keeping everyone else behind, and then send it for lap 2 to get the lap record. Anyway, there's another form of lap record, an unofficial lap record. Something like when Porsche went around with the 919 Evo, a non-regulation race car, and went for as many lap records as they could. These don't count for official lap records. But for the sake of today's video, they do count, because they are the fastest cars around that track. So let's run through all of the racetracks that have lap records held by cars that aren't F1. Now, as you might expect, that rules out all of the current F1 tracks. They are mostly held by the 2021 F1 cars, as they were a good chunk faster than today's cars. For example, the Spa record is held by Lewis in the W11 Mercedes, maybe the fastest F1 car ever. And that was a 141.252 in qualifying. And this year, Max did a 146.1. So just under 5 seconds slower. And pretty much all of the other tracks have lap records held by 2021 cars. Let's start with one of the most famous tracks on the planet, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The record is held by Arie Luyendyk from practice in the 1996 Indy 500. It was 37.616 seconds, or an average of 239 miles per hour. That's absolutely insane. 239 miles an hour average. Now, yes, that is an Indy car, and Indy cars are designed for Indy, but these 90s cars were incredible. The kart Indy car had a turbocharged 2.65 litre V8 Ford Cosworth engine, running on methanol and producing around 800 to 900 horsepower. They were absolute weapons. Compare that to the 1,000-ish horsepower of a Formula One car, presuming they would have the hybrid for the full lap, and you might assume the F1 car would have a shout. But the main issue here would be drag, as even in Monza spec, these cars would have way too much downforce. The maximum speed for this year was Bottas in Mexico, who did 224.9 miles per hour, and that was at altitude. So a Formula One car couldn't beat the lap record at Indy without really modifying the car. Next, the Nordschleife. The current record is held by the insane Porsche 919 Hybrid Evo, a car that is essentially the 919 LMP1 car with everything thrown at it. Skirts, more power, massive wings, bespoke tyres and weight saving, the lot. And we made a full video about that just up here. But the time was 5 minutes 19 seconds .546. And that's way faster than anything else that's ever lapped that track. Now, in a race with an F1 car, this is a lot closer, because the stats are very even. The Porsche produces around 1160 horsepower, but similar to the F1 car, this isn't all the time, as it relies on hybrid power generation. It weighs 849 kilos, only 50 kilos more than the F1 car, but it has four-wheel drive. However, the killer is that Porsche says the car has more downforce than a Formula One car. And they said that back in 2018, when the Formula One cars have more overall downforce than they do now. Then there's the fact that the Nordschleife is bumpy, there are massive elevation changes, curbs, as well as the famous carousel. And on the Nordschleife, a lot of lap time is in the curbs. This is where the Evo will find much more time over the F1 car, as it's set up for that track. This one is very close to call. But if you made me decide, I don't think the 919's time would be beaten. But I hope an F1 team sees that as a challenge. So next, Le Mans. This is held by Kamui Kobayashi in qualifying for the 2019 24 Hours of Le Mans. It was a 3 minute and 14.7 second lap, an outrageous time. And he did it in the Toyota TS050, which was the dominant car at the end of the LMP1 era. It was incredible. It had a 2.4 litre twin-turbo V6 creating about 500 horsepower. But that becomes 1,000 horsepower when combined with its capacitor hybrid system. Four-wheel drive, loads of downforce, and around 875 kilos. Again, this is very close to the stats of a Formula 1 car, apart from the drag. These Le Mans cars are made for low drag, and so are doing 210 miles an hour down the long straights. But it's very close to call, and I actually think the LMP1 car would have it in real life. Next is Daytona, the 2.5 mile oval. The race record is still held by Bill Elliott from 1987, before restrictor plates were brought in to limit the horsepower on the speedways. He did a 42.783, which equates to a 210.3 mile an hour average speed, which are absolutely crazy speeds. But a young guy called Colin Braun actually has the unofficial lap record in a Daytona prototype IMSA car, a 3.5 litre twin-turbo 6-cylinder Ford engine. He did 222 miles an hour average, which is outside of the range of a Formula 1 car. And I think a Formula 1 car definitely couldn't beat this. I know this is outside the rules, but I do think a modern F1 car could beat the current next-gen NASCARs. But what about the road layout at Daytona? This is the layout for the Rolex 24 Hours, the US equivalent of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. They had the top class of prototypes racing in there too. The lap record is held by Alex Palou in the Cadillac DPI car from 2019. It was a 1 minute 33.724. This one I absolutely believe Formula 1 could beat. With a Monza spec aero package, Formula 1 cars would be able to keep up on the straights and absolutely fly through the infield section. Next, the Goodwood Hill Climb. This is world famous for the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and the previous record was held by a Formula 1 car. Back in 1999, Nick Heidfeld set a time of 41.6 seconds in the McLaren MP4-13. Those 90s F1 cars are beautiful. But that was beaten last year by Max Chilton in the McMurtry Spearling, a 1,000 horsepower electric race car with 2,000 kilos of downforce from stationary. And that's down to two fans drawing air from the floor to create static downforce, even when the car's not moving. And it also has wings. It did a 39.08, so 2 seconds faster than the 90s F1 car. It's going to be similar in downforce to a Formula 1 car, but actually have more downforce at the speeds the car will be doing through the tight turns on the hill climb. It would also thrash an F1 car off the line with a 0 to 60 time of 1.6 seconds, so maybe half a second to a second faster than the F1 car. Then there's the fact that this car is tiny. So on a tight, twisty hill climb, the racing lines are essentially wider, giving this car an advantage there as well. And I don't think that an F1 car could ever beat this lap. I actually don't think that anything will beat this lap time for a long while. Next is a bit of an unusual one, Cadwell Park. This isn't a world-renowned racetrack, but it is famous in the UK, nicknamed the Mini Nürburgring. However, it's unusual in the fact that it's very narrow and very technical. So narrow and technical that the lap record is actually held by a supercar, specifically an Anderson CSK Division 1 supercar, similar to the one that I drove a while back. And that thing was an absolute handful. These things have 100 horsepower 2-stroke inline twin engines, but only weigh 200 kilos. So they are rapid. But the main thing here is that they are narrow. When a car is narrow, it opens up the racing line on every corner, giving you a massive advantage. Now, Sam Moss has the record of a 1 minute 21.036, and bearing in mind that a Formula 3 lap was a 1:23, I don't think that today's massive, low, stiff Formula 1 cars would get anywhere close around Cadwell Park. Then there are a few tracks in the US that have non-F1 lap records. Road America, Watkins Glen and Sebring. All incredible, proper racetracks where they really bite if you get it wrong. But with these, I do actually think that a Formula 1 car could beat the times. Road America is still held by Dario Franchitti back in 2000 in a similar IndyCar to Arie Luyendyk's earlier. 900 horsepower weapons, but I don't think they have a fraction of the downforce of today's F1 cars. And there are a lot of high-speed corners at Road America that would suit an F1 car. Then there's Watkins Glen. That was set by Sébastien Bourdais in a 2017 IndyCar, a time of 1 minute 23.92. And those cars in road track spec just aren't anywhere as fast as today's F1 cars. Then there's Sebring, a very bumpy, technical track that is normally used for endurance racing. That time is held by Alonso in the Toyota TS050. and I think an F1 car would need to raise the ride height a fair bit and put on some big wings. But I do think that it could beat that lap time. And finally, we have two very unusual but iconic tracks. First of those is Pikes Peak. Now, we love Pikes Peak on this channel. It's the ultimate test of a car, driving on a super technical track up a mountain, where elevation really comes in. The record is currently held by the Volkswagen IDR, driven by Roman Dumas. He did a 7-minute 57.148 second run, which is an absolutely crazy time. This car produces 680 horsepower, is four-wheel drive and has some truly mental aerodynamics. The full treatment of a massive front splitter, enormous floor with skirts to create more downforce, and an enormous rear wing. So would an F1 car be faster? Well, over the first few miles, I think a Formula 1 car would create a gap. But as you climb up the mountain and the air gets thinner and thinner, the F1 car would lose power, and the IDR, being electric, doesn't. Then there's the fact that the hill climb is very bumpy, badly paved, and has super tight hairpins. And it's likely that today's F1 cars would really struggle in those conditions. So I think that the IDR would actually take this one. And finally, the Isle of Man TT mountain course, the most dangerous track on the planet. Raced by some of the bravest riders in the world, and the current lap record is held by Peter Hickman on the BMW S1000 RR motorbike. It was an absolutely incredible time of 16 minutes and 42 seconds, through towns, down normal roads, past curbs, over jumps, and down flat out and twisty sections of B roads. This bike creates 212 horsepower at nearly 14,000 RPM with a 1-litre 4-cylinder engine. But could a car beat it? Well, the closest thing to actually try is a Subaru WRX car, where Mark Higgins did a 17:35. Still nearly a minute off the record time. And part of me actually thinks that a Formula 1 car would have the pace, but I actually don't think that an F1 car could make it through the entire course. There are some incredible elevation changes, bumps in the asphalt, and some stuff like curbs and drain covers to deal with. Even with an F1 car at full ride height and soft spring rates, I can't see it touching this record. We made a video all about whether F1 could race at Indianapolis, just here, and whether F1 could race at Le Mans, just here. Check those out, and I'll catch you in the next one.